The emergency beacon cut through the void of space like a knife through silk. Captain HFY of the Galactic Defense Coalition received the distress signal while patrolling the Outer Rim territories. His 4 arms worked frantically across the control panels of his ship as he decoded the message. "This is Commander Veltar of the 3rd Defense Fleet." The transmission crackled with static. "We are under heavy assault at the Kepler station. The Void Hunters have broken through our lines. They're slaughtering civilians. We need immediate reinforcements. Anyone who can hear this, please respond." HFY's mandibles clicked nervously. The Void Hunters were notorious across the galaxy, a savage race that consumed entire planets, leaving nothing but empty husks behind. They had been quiet for decades, leading many to believe they had moved to distant galaxies. Now they were back, and they were hungry. The captain quickly sent messages to every coalition ship in the sector. The responses came back one by one, each more devastating than the last. The main fleet was engaged in a border dispute with the Cronin Empire. The 2nd Defense Fleet was responding to pirate attacks near the trade routes. The emergency response teams were scattered across 12 different systems, dealing with natural disasters and political conflicts. In desperation, HFY opened the communications to include non-coalition vessels. He sent the distress call to mercenary groups, independent traders, and even the mysterious species that rarely involve themselves in galactic affairs. Most ignored the call. Others sent regrets, claiming they were too far away or too poorly equipped to help. Then came a response that made HFY's blood run cold. "We hear your call," came a voice in broken but understandable galactic standard. "We come help. We bring reinforcements." The transmission originated from a small, blue-green planet in an unremarkable star system. The species called themselves humans, and they were barely known to the galactic community. Most races considered them primitive, having only achieved faster-than-light travel a few decades ago. They had no major military presence, no advanced weapons, and their technology was considered outdated by galactic standards. "Negative, unknown vessel," HFY responded quickly. "This is a military operation against the Void Hunters. Civilian ships should evacuate the area immediately." "We not civilian," the human voice replied with what sounded like amusement. "We military. We coming." Before HFY could protest further, the transmission ended. He tried to contact the human ship again, but received no response. Frustrated and worried, he turned his ship toward Kepler Station, knowing that whatever small help the humans might provide would likely result in their deaths. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of the United Earth Defense Force. The massive screens around her showed star maps, fleet positions, and tactical assessments. When the alien distress call had reached Earth, it had caused an immediate stir in the military command. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, approaching with a datapad. "We've analyzed the situation at Kepler Station. The Void Hunters are using approximately 50 capital ships and hundreds of smaller attack craft. The defending force has been reduced to less than 20 operational vessels." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Humanity had been monitoring galactic communications for years, learning about the various species and their conflicts. The Void Hunters were well documented in their archives as one of the most dangerous threats in known space. "What do we have available for deployment?" she asked. "The 3rd and 5th battle groups are currently on exercises near Jupiter. We could have them at the jump point within 6 hours." Admiral Chun considered the options. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Ever since they had achieved faster-than-light travel, human military strategists had studied every galactic conflict they could monitor. They had learned from the mistakes and successes of other species, adapting their tactics accordingly. The human approach to warfare was fundamentally different from other galactic species. While most alien races fought with honor codes, predetermined battle formations, and ritualistic combat procedures, humans had developed what they called total war, the complete mobilization of resources and the willingness to use any means necessary to achieve victory. "Send word to both battle groups," Admiral Chun ordered. "Full deployment. Authorization, Normandy Protocol." Lieutenant Colonel Martinez's eyes widened. The Normandy Protocol was humanity's most classified military doctrine, developed in secret over the past 30 years. It represented everything humanity had learned about warfare, from ancient Earth battles to theoretical space combat scenarios. Ma'am, the Normandy Protocol against an unknown alien force. Are you certain? Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display, showing the Kepler station's desperate situation. Thousands of civilians were trapped on that station, and the defending fleet was being systematically destroyed. Colonel, when someone calls for help, we answer. That's what humans do. And when innocent people are being slaughtered by monsters, we don't hold back. The orders went out immediately. Across the Sol system, human ships began moving toward the jump point. These weren't the sleek, elegant vessels favored by other galactic species. Human ships were angular, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons. They had been designed with one purpose in mind: to win battles at any cost. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the UES Retribution, humanity's newest battleship. As she watched the fleet assemble, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and dread. This would be humanity's first major engagement with a hostile alien force. Captain, called out her tactical officer, Commander Park. All ships are reporting ready for jump. Fleet composition: 12 battleships, 24 cruisers, 48 destroyers, and 67 support vessels. Very good, Commander. Signal the fleet. Prepare for combat jump. As the human fleet prepared to leap across space to help strangers they had never met, Admiral Chun watched from Earth with pride and concern. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The other species thought they were sending obsolete ships and amateur soldiers to die heroically. They had no idea what was coming. The Void Hunters had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics, overwhelmed defenders with superior numbers, spread terror among civilian populations, and consume everything in their path. They had never faced an enemy that fought the way humans fought. They had never encountered a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other, learning from every conflict, and developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to destroy any enemy, no matter how powerful. The Void Hunters were about to learn why humans called their military doctrine total war. And the galaxy was about to discover why the soft-looking species from the small blue planet had survived and thrived despite having no natural weapons, no thick hide, and no obvious evolutionary advantages. They were about to learn what it meant when humans went to war. The space around Kepler Station was a graveyard of twisted metal and burning plasma. Commander Veltar watched helplessly as another Coalition cruiser exploded under the relentless assault of the Void Hunter fleet. His own ship, the GCS Starwind, shuddered as enemy fire found its mark. "Shields down to 30%, shouted his weapons officer, a young Zalarian whose blue skin had turned pale with fear. "Sir, we need to retreat or we'll be destroyed." Veltar's 4 eyes tracked the tactical display. Of the original 47 ships in his fleet, only 18 remained functional. The Void Hunters had lost perhaps 6 vessels in the entire engagement. Their ships were massive, organic-looking things that seemed to regenerate damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. "Negative," Veltar replied firmly. "There are still civilians on that station. We hold the line." The Void Hunter ships moved with predatory grace, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. These weren't just warships. They were living creatures, bred for war and consumption. Each ship housed thousands of Void Hunters, creatures that looked like a nightmare fusion of insect and shadow. High Predator Korth stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the battle with satisfaction. The Coalition forces fought bravely but, predictably, they followed standard galactic combat protocols: maintain formation, target the largest threats first, protect civilian assets. Such honor-bound tactics made them easy prey. "The station's shields are failing," reported his subordinate, a smaller creature whose voice was like grinding metal. "We can begin harvesting in approximately 1 time unit." Korth clicked his approval. Kepler Station housed nearly 50,000 beings from dozen different species. The feast would sustain his fleet for months as they prepared for their next conquest. The Coalition's weakness continued to amaze him. They actually cared about individual lives, making them vulnerable to exactly this kind of attack. "High Predator," another subordinate called out, "we're detecting an energy signature approaching the system. Unknown vessel configuration. Korth barely looked up. Another coalition ship? Negative. The signature is unusual. Multiple contacts, moving in a tight formation. Now Korth paid attention. He had been hunting through this galaxy for decades, and he knew the energy signatures of every coalition species. This was something different. On the bridge of the Starwind, Veltar received the same sensor readings. His communication officer, a reptilian saurian, looked confused. Sir, I'm reading approximately 150 contacts approaching from Vector 77 Mark IV. They're not in our database. Veltar felt a moment of hope. Perhaps the coalition had managed to send reinforcements after all. But, as the readings became clearer, his hope turned to confusion. Those power signatures, he murmured, they're so small. Those can't be capital ships. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as her sensors painted a picture of the battle ahead. The sight of the massive Void Hunter fleet surrounding the battered coalition defenders made her jaw clench. Jesus, whispered Commander Park, look at the size of those things. The largest one has to be at least 4 times our mass. Captain Stone studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were indeed massive, but they were also moving in predictable patterns. More importantly, they seemed to be focusing entirely on the coalition fleet, leaving their flanks exposed. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Implement tactical pattern Omega. All ships are to maintain radio silence, and switch to hardline laser communications only. Captain, shouldn't we contact the coalition forces? Let them know we're here. Negative. The enemy will be monitoring their communications. We maintain the element of surprise as long as possible. The human fleet split into 3 groups, moving through the system's asteroid belt and debris fields. They used the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover, approaching the battle zone from 3 different vectors. Their ships were smaller than the coalition vessels, but they moved with a coordination that seemed almost mechanical in its precision. High Predator Korth finally turned his attention to the approaching contacts. What he saw on his screens made him pause. What are those things? He asked, studying the unusual ship designs. They look like metal parasites. His tactical officer provided what information it could gather. Unknown species, High Predator. Approximately 150 ships, but their individual mass is much smaller than standard coalition vessels. They appear to be using some form of stealth technology. Our sensors are having difficulty maintaining locks. Korth felt a moment of unease. The ships were moving in patterns he had never seen before. Not the rigid formations favored by the coalition, but fluid, adaptive movements that seem to respond to the changing battle conditions in real time. Are they attempting to communicate? Negative, High Predator. Complete radio silence. This was definitely unusual. Every species Korth had encountered followed the same basic pattern. They would issue challenges, demand surrender, or at least try to negotiate before engaging in combat. These newcomers were simply moving into position without any apparent interest in communication. Perhaps they intend to flee, suggested his subordinate. Korth watched as the unknown ships continued their approach. Something about their movement patterns triggered an ancient predatory instinct. These ships weren't moving like prey trying to escape. They were moving like hunters. On Kepler Station, civilian coordinator Mira Asen watched the approaching human fleet through the station's sensors. Like everyone else monitoring the battle, she was confused by the newcomers' behavior. Why aren't they talking to us? Asked her assistant, a young man whose species Mira couldn't identify. Every military protocol requires communication before engaging an unknown force. Mira had no answer. She had spent her entire career working with different species, and she thought she understood how galactic politics and warfare operated. This was something entirely outside her experience. The human ships had reached their attack positions without being detected by the Void Hunters, who were still focused on finishing off the coalition fleet. Captain Stone checked her chronometer and opened a channel to the other group commanders. Phoenix Leader, this is Retribution Actual. Confirm positions. Phoenix Leader confirmed. We have targets locked and are ready to engage. Hammer Leader confirmed. Torpedo tubes loaded, waiting for your signal. Captain Stone took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since they first learned about the hostile aliens that roamed the galaxy. All their training, all their theoretical planning, was about to be put to the test. All units, this is Retribution Actual. Today we show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens innocent people. Today we remind the universe why humans don't start fights, but we damn sure finish them. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. The human fleet struck simultaneously from 3 directions. The Void Hunters, caught completely off guard, found themselves under attack by an enemy that fought unlike anything they had ever encountered. Human ships didn't try to match the massive Void Hunter vessels in direct combat. Instead, they swarmed like angry hornets, targeting specific systems with pinpoint accuracy. Their weapons weren't designed to compete with alien technology. They were designed to be simple, reliable, and devastating. The Void Hunters suddenly discovered that their regenerating hulls meant nothing when human kinetic weapons punched clean through their ships, and their superior size was a disadvantage when facing an enemy that refused to fight fair. The galaxy was about to learn its first lesson about human warfare. Humans didn't fight to win glory or prove their superiority. They fought to eliminate threats, and they would use any tactic necessary to achieve that goal. The Battle of Kepler Station had just become something much more than a rescue mission. It had become humanity's introduction to galactic warfare, and their first demonstration of why evolution had shaped them into the most efficient killers their planet had ever produced. The first human torpedo strike hit the Void Hunter flagship like a hammer blow. High Predator Korth felt his ship shudder as multiple impacts tore through the outer hull sections. The regenerating bioarmor that had protected his fleet for centuries simply disintegrated under the kinetic bombardment. Impossible, Korth snarled as damage reports flooded his command center. What are those weapons? His tactical officer's voice carried a note of panic. High Predator, they appear to be using some form of dense metal projectiles accelerated to extreme velocities. Our bioarmor cannot adapt fast enough to counter the impact force. Korth's mandibles clicked in frustration. Void Hunter ships were living organisms, bred and evolved to resist energy weapons and traditional explosive devices. Their hulls could adapt to most forms of attack, healing damage and developing immunity to repeated strikes. But these humans were using something entirely different, simple metal slugs moving at incredible speeds. Captain Stone watched the tactical display with satisfaction as her torpedo spreads found their marks. Human military doctrine had always emphasized the effectiveness of kinetic weapons. When something hard hit something else really fast, physics did the rest. Torpedo tubes reloading, reported her weapons officer. Enemy flagship showing critical damage to sections 7 through 12. Excellent. Signal Phoenix Group to begin their attack run. Hammer Group, continue targeting the smaller vessels. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, constantly shifting positions and attacking from unexpected angles. Unlike the formal battle lines preferred by most galactic species, human ships fought as individual units while maintaining perfect coordination through their communication networks. Commander Veltar watched the human attack with amazement. In less than 5 minutes, the mysterious newcomers had inflicted more damage on the Void Hunters than his entire fleet had managed in hours of fighting. "Sir," called his communications officer, "the humans are broadcasting on an open channel. They want to coordinate our attack patterns. Put them through." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in surprisingly clear galactic standard. "Coalition Fleet, this is Captain Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. We're here to provide fire support. Can you begin targeting the enemy command ships while we handle the smaller vessels?" Veltar hesitated. The humans were asking him to abandon standard defensive protocols and go on the attack. His training told him to maintain formation and protect the station. But his eyes told him something different. The humans had already destroyed 6 Void Hunter ships and were systematically dismantling the enemy fleet with tactics he had never seen before. "Acknowledged, Captain Stone. We're moving to attack formation now." The coalition ships, inspired by the human assault, began their own attack runs. The Void Hunters suddenly found themselves fighting on 2 fronts against enemies using completely different strategies. High Predator Korth was beginning to understand that he faced something unprecedented. These humans didn't fight like any species he had encountered. They showed no concern for honor in combat, no adherence to traditional battle protocols. They simply attacked with ruthless efficiency, targeting whatever would cause the most damage. High Predator, his subordinate reported, we're losing ships faster than our reinforcement rate. The humans are using some form of coordinated pack hunting behavior. Korth studied the battle display. The human ships were indeed behaving like pack hunters, isolating individual Void Hunter vessels and overwhelming them with concentrated fire. But there was something else, something that made his predatory instincts scream warnings. They're learning, he realized. Look at their attack patterns. They're adapting to our defensive measures in real time. It was true. Each human attack was more effective than the last. They were studying Void Hunter tactics, identifying weaknesses, and modifying their approach accordingly. This wasn't just military training. This was evolutionary behavior that had been refined over millions of years of survival on a hostile world. Lieutenant Commander Harris piloted his destroyer through the debris field surrounding a damaged Void Hunter cruiser. His ship, the US Wolverine, was one of the smaller vessels in the human fleet, but it carried enough firepower to level a small city. Target those weapon clusters on the starboard side, he ordered his gunner. Hit them with everything we have. The Wolverine's railgun spoke, sending tungsten slugs into the alien ship's weapon ports. The Void Hunter vessel tried to turn away, but Harris had anticipated the movement. His ship was already repositioning for another strike. Sir, that ship is trying to regenerate its damaged sections, reported his tactical officer. Not on my watch, Harris replied grimly. Fire pattern Delta. Don't give it time to heal. The continuous bombardment prevented the Void Hunter ship from completing its biological healing process. Each time the alien vessel began to repair damage, another wave of kinetic rounds would tear through the affected area. This was another uniquely human innovation. While other species would attack, withdraw, and attack again in formal patterns, humans had developed the concept of sustained pressure. They would maintain continuous contact with the enemy, never allowing them time to recover or regroup. On Kepler Station, civilian coordinator Mira Asen watched the battle with growing amazement. The human ships were not just fighting the Void Hunters. They were systematically destroying them. Look at their formation patterns, she said to her assistant. They're not following any known military doctrine. It's like they're improvising everything in real time. Maybe that's why it's working, her assistant replied. The Void Hunters have probably seen every standard tactic in the Galactic military database. They've never seen anything like this. Mira nodded thoughtfully. The humans were fighting with a creativity and adaptability that seemed almost impossible. Every time the Void Hunters tried to counter their tactics, the humans would change their approach. High Predator Korth finally admitted to himself that this battle was lost. His fleet had been reduced to less than half strength, and the humans showed no signs of slowing their attack. Worse, the coalition forces had rallied and were now fighting with renewed confidence. Signal the fleet, he ordered reluctantly. We retreat to the outer system. Prepare for emergency jump. But as his ships began to withdraw, Korth discovered another unpleasant surprise. The humans had positioned some of their vessels along the most likely escape routes. They weren't just winning the battle. They were trying to prevent any Void Hunters from escaping to threaten other worlds. Captain Stone received the report of the enemy withdrawal with satisfaction, but no relaxation of her guard. All ships, maintain pursuit. Don't let them regroup. Phoenix Group, cut off their escape route through the asteroid field. Hammer Group, prepare pursuit formation. Captain, asked Commander Park, shouldn't we let some of them escape? If we destroy the entire fleet, we won't be able to interrogate survivors or gather intelligence about their overall force strength. Captain Stone considered this for a moment. It was sound military logic. Leaving some enemies alive to provide information was often more valuable than total annihilation. But then, she thought about the 50,000 civilians on Kepler Station who would have been murdered and consumed if the Void Hunters had succeeded. She thought about all the other worlds that had fallen to these creatures, all the innocent beings who had died because someone had decided to show mercy to monsters. Negative, Commander. These things eat sentient beings. They slaughter civilians for food. We don't negotiate with monsters, and we don't give them opportunities to hurt more innocent people. Understood, Captain. All ships, continue pursuit. No survivors. The human fleet pressed their attack with relentless determination. One by one, The remaining Void Hunter ships were hunted down and destroyed. Those that tried to flee found their escape routes blocked. Those that tried to fight were overwhelmed by coordinated attacks from multiple directions. High Predator Korth's flagship was the last Void Hunter vessel left intact. As human ships closed in from all sides, he finally understood what his species had encountered. These weren't just another galactic civilization. They were apex predators from a world that had shaped them into perfect killers. The humans fought with the cold efficiency of creatures that had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to eliminate threats. They showed no mercy because they had learned that mercy toward predators meant death for the innocent. As the final human torpedoes struck his ship, Korth's last thought was a warning he would never be able to deliver to the rest of his species. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it wore the deceptively soft face of humanity. The Battle of Kepler Station was over. The Void Hunter fleet had been completely destroyed, with no survivors. And, across the galaxy, other species began to receive reports that would change their understanding of the small blue planet and its inhabitants forever. The aftermath of the Battle of Kepler Station sent shockwaves through the Galactic Defense Coalition. In the war room of the Coalition High Command on Centauri Prime, Fleet Admiral Nexus stood before a holographic display showing the battle analysis. His crystalline form glowed with agitation as he processed the data. "Run the simulation again," he ordered his staff. "There must be an error in the calculations." The hologram replayed the battle for the 5th time. The same results appeared. A completely unknown species had arrived at Kepler Station and destroyed an entire Void Hunter fleet in less than 4 hours. A fleet that would have required the combined might of 3 coalition battle groups to defeat. "Admiral," said his tactical advisor, a tall ethereal whose voice sounded like wind chimes, "the data has been verified multiple times. The humans achieved a complete victory with minimal losses. 3 of their smaller ships suffered moderate damage. That's all." Admiral Nexus struggled to comprehend the implications. The Void Hunters had been a galactic threat for over 2 centuries. They had consumed dozens of worlds, destroyed countless fleets, and forced the Coalition to maintain massive defensive forces along the Outer Rim territories. And now a previously unknown species had casually eliminated an entire Void Hunter battle fleet as if it were a training exercise. "What do we know about these humans?" Nexus asked. "Very little, Admiral. They come from a small planet in an unremarkable star system. They achieved faster-than-light travel only 37 years ago. Our intelligence suggests they have minimal contact with other galactic civilizations." "And their military capabilities?" The tactical advisor's form flickered with uncertainty. "Based on this engagement, Admiral, we have no reliable assessment. Their technology appears crude by our standards, but their tactical doctrine is unlike anything in our databases." Admiral Nexus studied the battle recordings again. The human ships moved with a fluidity that seemed almost organic, yet their attacks were precisely coordinated. They had identified and exploited weaknesses in Void Hunter defenses that Coalition military scientists had never even recognized. Meanwhile, on Kepler Station, Commander Veltar was conducting his own investigation into the mysterious humans who had saved his fleet. He walked through the station's medical bay, where injured survivors from both Coalition and human ships were being treated together. The human medical techniques fascinated the station's doctors. Where Coalition medicine focused on advanced nanotechnology and energy-based healing, the humans used a combination of traditional surgical procedures and remarkably effective biochemical treatments. "Their medical knowledge is extraordinary," explained Dr. Kithera, the station's chief medical officer. "They understand biological systems in ways that our medical computers cannot match. They've saved 3 patients that our equipment declared unsavable." Veltar approached the bed where a human officer was being treated for plasma burns. The man looked remarkably ordinary. No enhanced physical characteristics, no obvious evolutionary adaptations for combat. Yet this species had just demonstrated military capabilities that defied explanation. "How are you feeling?" Veltar asked. The human, Lieutenant Commander Harris, smiled weakly. "I've been better, but I'll live. Thanks to your doctors. I should be thanking you. You saved this station and everyone on it." Harris shook his head. "We did what anyone would do. Someone called for help, so we came." Veltar found this statement puzzling. In his experience, species only responded to distress calls from their allies or from situations that offered strategic advantages. The humans had no apparent connection to Kepler Station or the Coalition. Why? Veltar asked simply. Harris looked confused by the question. Why what? Why did you come? You had no obligation to help us. You could have been killed. Harris considered this for a moment. Commander, has anyone ever told you about something called the Good Samaritan Principle? Veltar shook his head. It's an old story from Earth. A man was attacked by robbers and left for dead on a road. Several people passed by without helping, but one stranger stopped, treated his wounds, and made sure he got to safety. The stranger had nothing to gain from helping. He just did it because it was the right thing to do. And this is normal human behavior? It's what we try to be, Harris replied. We don't always succeed, but when someone's in trouble, especially innocent people being hurt by monsters, we help if we can. Veltar left the medical bay with more questions than answers. The humans fought with devastating efficiency, yet they seemed genuinely motivated by altruism. They had technology that was apparently inferior to Coalition standards, yet they had achieved things that Coalition forces considered impossible. Captain Stone was conducting her own post-battle analysis in the Retribution's conference room. Her senior officers sat around the table, reviewing tactical data and discussing lessons learned from their first contact with hostile aliens. The Void Hunters' regenerative capabilities were their primary advantage, reported Commander Park. But their healing systems required time and energy that our sustained bombardment strategy didn't allow them. What about their fleet coordination? Asked Stone. Surprisingly rigid, answered Lieutenant Colonel Reyes, the fleet's Marine commander. They seemed to follow predetermined attack patterns. When we disrupted their formations, they had trouble adapting. Captain Stone nodded. This matched what she had observed during the battle. The Void Hunters fought like creatures of instinct rather than intelligence. They were powerful but predictable. Any recommendations for future engagements? She asked. We need better intelligence on alien defensive systems, said Park. We got lucky this time because kinetic weapons aren't common in galactic warfare. But future enemies might be better prepared. Agreed. What about our interaction with Coalition forces? Generally positive, reported her communications officer. They followed our tactical suggestions without question once they saw the results. Their coordination is good, but their doctrine is very defensive-minded. Stone studied the reports with satisfaction. Humanity's first interstellar military engagement had been a complete success, but she knew this was just the beginning. Other hostile species would learn about the Battle of Kepler Station and adjust their tactics accordingly. News of the human victory spread through galactic communication networks at faster-than-light speed. On trading stations, diplomatic outposts, and military headquarters across known space, beings gathered around communication terminals to watch recordings of the battle. The Cronin Empire, humanity's nearest neighbors, called an emergency session of their war council. General Crix, Supreme Commander of Cronin forces, studied the human tactical displays with growing concern. This changes everything, he said to his assembled staff. We assumed the humans were a primitive species suitable for eventual annexation. These recordings suggest otherwise. Perhaps it was luck, suggested one of his subordinates. A single successful battle doesn't prove overall military competence. General Crix's four eyes focused on the subordinate with cold intensity. Study these attack patterns. Look at their ship movements, their weapon coordination, their strategic planning. This wasn't luck. This was a species that has perfected the art of warfare. Similar conversations were taking place across the galaxy. The Stellar Confederacy analyzed human technology, trying to understand how such apparently simple weapons could be so effective. The Hive Collective sent scout ships toward human space, seeking to gather intelligence on this new potential threat. But the most significant reaction came from the hegemony, the galaxy's dominant military power. In their fortress world of Dominion Prime, High Command reviewed the battle recordings with growing alarm. These humans destroyed a Void Hunter fleet, stated Overlord Vex, the hegemony's supreme leader. The same Void Hunters that have resisted our expansion for decades. It appears so, Overlord, confirmed his military advisor. Our analysis suggests they use tactics we have never encountered. Summon the Science Directorate, ordered Vex. I want a complete analysis of human capabilities and prepare a diplomatic mission. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen received regular updates on galactic reactions to the Battle of Kepler Station. Intelligence reports suggested that humanity had gained the attention of every major galactic power. "Ma'am," reported her aide, "we're detecting increased surveillance activity in nearby star systems. At least 6 different species have sent scout ships to gather intelligence on our capabilities." Admiral Chen wasn't surprised. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. Every military power in known space would want to understand whether humans represented a threat or an opportunity. "Any hostile movements?" she asked. "Not yet, Admiral. Most seem to be taking a wait-and-see approach. But the Cronin Empire has moved several fleets to positions near our border." Admiral Chun considered the implications. Humanity had wanted to make a strong first impression on the galactic community, and they had certainly succeeded. But strength could provoke fear, and fear could lead to conflict. "Increase patrol activity along all our borders," she ordered, "and prepare the diplomatic corps for contact with multiple alien governments. We're not just the new species in the galaxy anymore. We're a major player, whether we want to be or not." The Battle of Kepler Station had saved 50,000 innocent lives and eliminated a major galactic threat. But it had also fundamentally altered humanity's position in the universe. The small blue planet and its inhabitants were no longer unknown quantities. They were now recognized as something far more dangerous and unpredictable: humans who went to war. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, Earth's first galactic embassy was bustling with activity. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations had requested formal meetings with humanity, and Admiral Chin found herself serving as both military commander and informal ambassador. "Admiral," announced her aide, "the hegemony delegation has arrived. They're requesting an immediate audience." Admiral Chin straightened her uniform and walked to the main conference room. The hegemony was the galaxy's most powerful military force, controlling over 300 star systems. Their request for a meeting had been both expected and dreaded. Overlord Vex entered the room with a retinue of guards and advisors. His species, the Dominators, were tall, imposing beings with metallic skin and glowing red eyes. They had built their empire through conquest and intimidation. "Admiral Chun," Vex said in perfectly pronounced English, "I come to discuss the future of human hegemony relations." "We're honored by your visit, Overlord," Chin replied diplomatically. "How can humanity assist the hegemony?" Vex studied her for a long moment. "You can join us. The hegemony offers humanity membership in our alliance. In exchange for exclusive access to your military technologies and tactical doctrines, we will provide protection and trading rights throughout hegemony space." Admiral Chun had expected this offer. Intelligence reports suggested the hegemony was facing pressure from several directions: rebellious colonies, rival powers, and the ongoing Void Hunter threat in unexplored regions. "That's a generous offer, Overlord. What would membership in the hegemony require from humanity? Your military forces would be integrated into hegemony command structure. Human ships would serve alongside hegemony fleets in maintaining order throughout our territory. Your planet would receive protection and economic benefits in exchange for this service." Admiral Chun recognized the offer for what it was: a polite demand for submission. The hegemony wanted to acquire human military capabilities while ensuring that humanity could never become a rival power. "I'll need to discuss this with Earth's leadership," she replied carefully. "Of course," Vex said. "But I should mention that the hegemony's offer of protection is time-sensitive. The galaxy is becoming increasingly dangerous. New threats emerge constantly. It would be unfortunate if humanity were to face such threats alone." The implied threat was clear enough. Admiral Chun maintained her diplomatic composure while making mental notes for her intelligence staff. After the hegemony delegation departed, Chun was immediately visited by representatives from the coalition. Commander Veltar, recently promoted to Sector Admiral, led a team of coalition diplomats. "Admiral Chun," Veltar said warmly, "the coalition formally invites humanity to join our alliance as a full member with voting rights and autonomous territory." "What would membership require?" Chen asked, mutual defense agreements, and cooperation in maintaining galactic peace. Unlike other organizations, the coalition respects member sovereignty. You would maintain control over your military forces and internal affairs. Admiral Chen appreciated the coalition's approach, but she recognized the political reality. The coalition was the galaxy's defensive alliance, constantly under pressure from more aggressive powers like the hegemony. Joining them would inevitably mean conflict. Admiral, Veltar continued, there's something else you should know. We've detected increased Void Hunter activity in 3 different sectors. The fleet you destroyed at Kepler Station was apparently just one of many. They're mobilizing for a major offensive. This was troubling news. Human intelligence had assumed the Void Hunter threat was diminished after their defeat at Kepler Station. Do you have any idea what they're targeting? Chen asked. Our analysis suggests they're moving toward the galactic core, where population density is highest. Billions of beings could be at risk if they succeed in their objectives. Admiral Chen realized that humanity's first military victory had not ended their involvement in galactic conflicts. It had only guaranteed that they would be drawn into larger ones. Over the following days, Earth received similar offers from a dozen other galactic powers. The Stellar Confederacy offered trade partnerships. The Free Worlds League suggested a defensive pact. Even some of the more mysterious species like the Ancients sent cryptic messages expressing interest in human evolutionary potential. But the most interesting contact came from an unexpected source. Captain Stone, still commanding the Retribution, intercepted a coded transmission while on patrol near the galactic rim. Captain, reported her communications officer, we're receiving a narrow-beam transmission from an unknown source. The signal is heavily encrypted, but it appears to be requesting a meeting. Can you determine the origin? Negative, Captain. The signal is being bounced through multiple relay points. But the encryption algorithm is unlike anything in our databases. Stone authorized the decryption attempt. When the message was finally decoded, its contents surprised everyone on the bridge. To the humans of Earth, we have observed your actions at Kepler Station. We wish to meet with your representatives to discuss matters of mutual interest. We represent those who have watched the galaxy's development for millennia. Coordinates attached. Come alone. The observers, Admiral Chen reviewed the message with her senior staff. The name observers appeared in several galactic databases, but always as rumors and speculation. They were supposedly an ancient species that monitored galactic development without direct interference. It could be a trap, suggested her intelligence chief. Possibly, Chen agreed. But if they really are who they claim to be, this could be the most important contact humanity has ever made. She authorized Captain Stone to investigate the coordinates, with strict instructions to withdraw immediately if anything seemed threatening. The coordinates led to a small, unremarkable moon in an uninhabited star system. As the Retribution approached, Stone's sensors detected a massive structure hidden beneath the moon's surface. Captain, reported her tactical officer, I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our database. The structure appears to be at least 50,000 years old. A communication channel opened without any input from Stone's crew. Captain Stone, said a voice that sounded ageless and somehow familiar. Please transport to the surface. You have nothing to fear. Against all standard protocols, Stone decided to beam down with only a small security detail. They materialized in a vast chamber filled with technology that seemed to blur the line between science and art. The being who greeted them was tall and elegant, with features that seemed to shift subtly in the light. When it spoke, Stone felt as if she were hearing the voice of time itself. Welcome, Captain. I am Curator Prime, spokesperson for the observers. We have monitored your species for some time, but the Battle of Kepler Station has prompted us to make contact. Why now? Stone asked. Because humanity has reached a critical juncture. Your species possesses capabilities that could reshape the galaxy's future. But with that potential comes great danger. Curator Prime gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic images showing galactic history, the rise and fall of civilizations, terrible wars, periods of peace and prosperity. Every few millennia, a species emerges that fundamentally alters the balance of galactic power. Usually, such species destroy themselves or are destroyed by others. We have observed 17 such species over the past 100,000 years. 16 are now extinct. Stone felt a chill as she realized the implications. The 17th, she asked, still exists, but only because we intervened at the crucial moment. They learned to temper their power with wisdom, their strength with restraint. And you think humanity is facing that same test? We know you are. The question is whether you will pass it. Curator Prime showed Stone images of the current galactic situation, the hegemony's growing aggression, the coalition's defensive preparations, the Void Hunter mobilization, and dozens of other conflicts brewing across known space. Humanity's intervention at Kepler Station has disrupted the existing balance of power. Every major civilization is now reassessing their strategies based on your demonstrated capabilities. Some see opportunity, others see threat. All of them are preparing for change. What kind of change? Stone asked. War, Captain. The largest galactic conflict in recorded history. And humanity will be at its center, whether you choose to be or not. Stone absorbed this information with growing dread. Humanity had saved 50,000 lives at Kepler Station, but in doing so, they had apparently triggered events that could lead to the deaths of billions. Is there any way to prevent this war? She asked. Curator Prime's expression was unreadable. Perhaps, but it would require humanity to make choices that your species has never made before. It would require you to become something you have never been. What do you mean? You would need to become the galaxy's guardians, not its conquerors. You would need to use your strength to preserve peace, not to achieve victory. You would need to evolve beyond the instincts that made you effective warriors. Stone considered this carefully. Everything in human history suggested that they were better at winning wars than preventing them. The observers are prepared to help, Curator Prime continued, but only if humanity proves itself worthy of that assistance. The test begins now, with the choices you make in response to the crisis that is coming. As Stone prepared to return to her ship, Curator Prime offered one final piece of information. Captain, the Void Hunters you defeated at Kepler Station were not acting independently. Someone is directing their movements, using them as weapons against specific targets. That someone knows about humanity now, and they are not pleased with your interference. The revelation hit Stone like a physical blow. The Void Hunters were not just mindless predators. They were being used as tools by some intelligence that remained hidden. As the Retribution departed the ancient facility, Stone realized that the Battle of Kepler Station had not been the end of humanity's first galactic conflict. It had been the opening move in something much larger and more dangerous. Humanity had answered the call for help and proved they could fight. Now they would need to prove they could do something much harder. They would need to learn how to build peace in a galaxy that was rapidly descending into chaos. The small blue planet and its inhabitants were about to face the greatest test in their species' history. And the outcome would determine not just humanity's survival, but the fate of every civilization in known space.